Welcome to the Songwriter Connection podcast, where we look at the craft of songwriting through the eyes of the songwriter. Each week, we make a connection with a music maker, listen to their songs, and hear their stories. From Nashville, Tennessee, here's your host, Dave Lenahan.
Well, you know, just a couple of weeks back, we had a really interesting episode that I hope you had a chance to listen to with Mark Allen Barnett and Debbie Champion, and we talked about songwriter rounds here in Nashville, how to perform on them, how to get invited back, the do's and don'ts. It was an excellent show, and if you haven't heard it, please go back and listen. And today, we're kind of going back to that theme a little bit, but I want you to meet and make a connection with a gentleman who hosted Songwriter Nights at the legendary Bluebird Cafe for 17 years. And I know he has seen a lot of upcoming artists and great songwriters in the past, heard a lot of big songs before they became hits. He's also an amazing songwriter and teacher. In fact, he's taught songwriting at 3 universities, and he's written songs for Barbara Mandrell, Ricky Van Shelton, the Oak Ridge Boys, Chris Young, Hank Jr., Randy Van Warmer. This list goes on and on. Gospel songs that have been recorded as well. It is just a pleasure to have Jeff Pearson with us. Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Man, life is good and it's getting better.
I love to hear that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's great being here, man.
Yeah, I love to have you around this dining room table where we love to play live music. So would you start us with a song?
You got it. He always wore bib overalls without fail. He was good with a paintbrush and a hammer and nail, and his favorite beer was whatever's on sale. I miss my dad. I miss my dad. She couldn't sing to save her life, that's for sure. She always said with a voice like hers, you learn all the words, but she made a joyful noise every Sunday in church. I miss my mom. I miss my mom. I miss my dad. I miss my mom. Between the Bible and a belt, they taught me right from wrong. They were honest and plain spoken as an old Hank Williams song. I miss my dad. I miss my mom. He taught me how to cast a spinning rod, how and when to set the hook and to tie a Palomar knot. And I treasure his old weather-beaten tackle box. I miss my dad. I miss my dad. She taught me about Jesus in John 3:16, and she wept on the day I came to believe. And I treasure her King James Bible that she left to me. I miss my mom. I miss my mom. He was ready to go, knew it wouldn't be long, as he whispered every word of the 23rd Psalm. Took 2 sips of old Milwaukee and he was gone. I miss my dad. I miss my dad. In her heart, she knew she was saved by grace. She was peaceful, she was ready and unafraid. She went to heaven with a smile on her face. I miss my mom. I miss my mom. I miss my dad. I miss my mom. Between the Bible and a belt, they taught me right from wrong. They were honest and plain spoken as an old Hank Williams song. I miss my dad. I miss my mom. I miss my dad. I miss my mom.
Jeff Pearson, we're making a connection on the Songwriter Connection podcast. Great song. What do you call that?
I actually just call the song Dad and Mom.
Dad and Mom. Great song. Lots of imagery in there.
You think? It's all true.
Is it all true? Two sips of Old Milwaukee and he was gone?
That's exactly right. My dad, he was at my sister's house in his hospital bed, and all he watched on TV for over a week was tennis and that show about how you make stuff. And he had cancer, and he was bedridden, and still had a sense of humor. And he asked my sister Julie, he goes, "Hey, hon, can you bring me some Old Milwaukee?" Because all he did, he hadn't eaten in a month, and he was just drinking water, and so that was unusual.
Yeah.
So she brought him the thing, and he had a little sippy cup, and he took 2 sips. And Julie went back to the kitchen, and when she came back, he was gone.
He was gone.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Wow. You know, that song is so powerful. I first heard you do it at the 12 Keys at one of the writers' rounds there in
thanks.
Away. And it's just a powerful. I'm sure there's a lot of people right now going, I got to call my mom and dad today.
I've had a lot of people say, "Have you recorded that?" And I said, "Not yet."
You got to.
And I've had many people say, "Can you send it to me when you do?" And I tell them, "Yeah, but I hope I still have their address."
Yeah. Jeff Pearson is our guest, and I saw you in the featured round. I want to say it was Monday night at the Commodore Grill with Debbie Champion.
Yeah, thanks.
You do that quite a bit, don't you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every time I'm there, she always said, before I leave, she goes, "I need to book you again." So she booked me for December and January.
It's always a thrill to do the feature round in Debbie's songwriter nights. You get to play by yourself and really showcase what you do, and it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't played writers' nights in years, and I think it was actually 12 Keys that brought me back. Because,
really?
Yeah. I lived so close, and I went in there and I said, "I want to do one of these," and y'all got me in there, and then I started getting calls to do more, and so it's been a fun ride.
It's good. Let's talk about the Bluebird days. People want to know. You did that for 17 years.
Yeah.
Was it Sunday nights that you hosted?
Yeah, that's the Songwriters' Night.
Yeah. So tell me how that works and how it worked then. Is it the same today?
It's a little different. When I first came to town, Amy Curland, who originally owned the Bluebird,
right,
was the host, and she's not stage worthy by her own admission. And so when I got up there, I have somewhat of a theater background. I got up there and I pretended like I was nervous, and I stood up there, and I was going, I'm really excited to be at the Bluebird Cafe tonight. My name is Jeff Pearson. I want to dedicate all these songs to the father of country music, John Travolta. I had the audience before I even did a song. And so Amy goes, and back then you could do 3 songs. If she liked you got to do 4 songs.
Wow.
I did 5 songs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And so she says to me, "I want you to host the Bluebird." And I said, I don't know if I want to be tied down to every Sunday night, but I did it for 17 years.
Wow.
And it was a joy. And to see so many people that were there that are now nationally known was pretty incredible.
I'll bet.
And Eric Church, I have Eric Church's old phone number.
Yeah.
And one night he was up there doing his show, and back then he had long hair.
Yeah.
And he was so distressed afterwards. I'm talking to him outside, and I go, "Man, what's up?" He goes, "I cannot get arrested in this town. Nobody takes me seriously." And here's what I said. I said, "Man, you have a unique style of singing. When your songwriting reaches the same level as your singing, you'll be what I call undeniable."
Yeah.
And so, goodness gracious, he's
look at the
that.
Chief today.
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Kenny Chesney used to play there. I hosted the show that Garth Brooks got his record deal on.
Let's talk about that, because we've heard that story from a couple of different points of view now, including Kent Blasey played, from what I understand, he played If Tomorrow Never Comes, right?
This was a different night.
This was a different night?
This used to be called Nashville Producer Publisher Night.
Okay.
And what happened is they'd have 5 writers, And when all the big dogs of the music business were there. They'd come in there, and they all were presented with a duffel bag with all the cassette tapes of the songs they were going to hear live that night. Wow. So if they liked one of the songs, they already had it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's a phenomenal idea. They don't do it anymore. And it was pronounced by the Nashville Entertainment Association, which I'm not sure that still exists. But anyway, Garth was up there, and he and Bob Doyle, his manager, had a meeting with Capitol Records like a day or two before. And they hadn't said yes or no. Well, Lynn Schultz from Capitol Records was at the back of the room, and I distinctly remember when Garth was singing, he has such dramatic stage presence when he does a ballad. Lynn Schultz stood up and was like, with a bewildered look on his face, like, why did we not sign this guy on Monday? But anyway, Garth blew him away, and the next day, Jim Fogelsong, who was the president of the record company, that's how he got his record deal.
Wow. And
Garth has been just one of the great guys of the music industry. I mean, he's done big favors for me, and I can't say I've done any favors for him because he doesn't need any from me. But he's one of the guys. I mean, some of my friends play in his band. Chris Lusinger is his lead guitar player, plays on every record, does the national tours. I was director of children's ministries at a church here in town, and Chris, I had both his kids in my children's church. Wow. And I was always getting unique stories about Garth. Just what a great guy he was to work for, and
one of the classiest in the business, and it still remains that way today.
Yeah.
Very good to all the radio people too, and not all of them are. But just an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Had his daughter on this show not too long ago.
Really?
Allie Colleen. It was wonderful. And she, what I love about her is she doesn't ride on anybody's coattails. We weren't even allowed to talk about her dad or her mom or her bonus mom, which is Tricia. And but it was a very entertaining show. She's an amazing woman.
Very cool.
I really admire her. So you've seen a lot, and you heard a lot of hits before they were hits. Any that just come to your mind when you heard that song and went, whoa, that's going to change the world.
Yeah, Rich Fagan, who had written the Grundy County Auction.
Yeah.
Every time he did that song, the place went nuts.
Oh, boy.
And also Steve Seskin, when he would play, and this is one of my favorite songs of all time. It kills me that I didn't write it. Don't Laugh at Me.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And Steve was saying back then, he goes, I don't think anyone's going to cut this song.
Yeah.
Well, of course, Mark Wills did, and sort of Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Yeah.
But
what a great song that was.
One of the, in my opinion, best songs to ever come out of Nashville.
Wow. Amazing. How long have you been writing songs, Jeff?
Well, I got my first cut in 1980 with Jim Stafford.
Wow.
And it was a single, and didn't do well, but he did it on the Johnny Carson show.
Oh, cool.
And at the time, I was in California, and obviously you know the Righteous Brothers. Mm-hmm. They're from Orange County. I'm from Orange County. And Bill Medley, the deep voice, you never close your eyes. He had a club called, oddly enough, Medley's.
Oh, well.
And I was playing there. I mean, I played there constantly. And the night that the Carson show was going to be having Jim Stafford on, I was the only one who, I didn't tell my brother, I didn't tell anybody. And I had all my friends there. I had a TV set on stage, and in California, the Tonight Show comes on at 11:30. At least it used to. I don't know what it is now. But when Stafford was on, he was talking about the song. He did the song live, and as soon as the lick came on, the audience knew it. My place, they had no idea why I had the TV on and why I took a break. I won't play you the song, but I'll just play the lick goes. The place went nuts, and it was one of those moments when, for 3.5 minutes, I was a cool guy. Yes, sir.
Of course.
But
you're still a cool guy.
Well, I have my moments.
Yeah.
But I mean, back then I was writing. I didn't have a methodology. I was hit or miss, and I would check with my brother Joe. I'd say, Joe, does this song work? If he had questions about the song, I knew I hadn't written it right, and one of those deals. Then I had written a song that I was planning on moving to Nashville, and I wrote a song called Orange County Cowboy. And people from out of state, when I would play it live, would say, "Have you got that on tape?" And I'm sitting there thinking, "You're from Michigan. Why do you care about Orange County?" But anyway, long story short, it got played on the Kick FM country station, and I mean, they played it once, and they got over 100 phone calls.
Wow.
So it lifted me out of playing clubs to doing concerts, and I opened for everybody you can imagine.
Really?
Everybody.
Drop some names. It's cool.
Jerry Lee Lewis, Rick Nelson.
Just got into the Hall of Fame, the Country Hall of Fame, and he's in the Rock Hall of Fame, too.
Rick Nelson, Tammy Wynette, Tom Wopat,
man.
Charlie McLean, Doug Kershaw.
Wow.
Barbara Mandrell, Patty Loveless, B.B. King.
B.B. King.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Thrill is gone, huh?
yeah, and so I came here out for the session in 1980 when Stafford was cutting the song, and I moved out here full time in 1985.
Stafford always seemed like a crazy dude to me, man, and a lot of fun.
He was as nice.
Was he?
He treated me like an equal. I mean,
good.
Because he invited me, and I think the producer's name was Phil Langford. He was the guy that produced on the Bellamy Brothers, "Just Let Your Love Flow."
Yeah, and I believe Stafford used to manage them when he started out.
Oh, really?
When they were starting out.
Well, the producer didn't want me in there because I'm the writer, and I said, "Hey, I'm not going to say a word. You guys do whatever." But Stafford was nice. I mean, even after the song, they did the tracks, and he was going to go back and do the vocals. We walked down to a little restaurant together. I mean, he was great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I've been writing forever, and
yeah.
I had 2 publishing deals in California and 3 here in Nashville.
Wow.
So
tell me what it's like working for a publisher. What, long days, or how did you work out your days?
Well, if I could do it differently all over again, I would, because what I did, I made a big mistake. But I will tell you, I learned a lot from my very first publisher was Roger Murrah, who is an icon beyond icons in this town.
Yep.
And he signed me because, well, first of all, let me back up. How did I get a deal with Roger Murrah?
Yeah.
I lived in California, and I'd opened for Tom Wopat at the Palomino. And one of his guitar players was Herb Peterson. If the public doesn't know who Herb Peterson was, he is unbelievable. He played banjo for the Dillards when Doug Dillard left. Wow. He is also the vocal arranger for the Trio album with Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris.
Wow.
And he and Vince Gill, before Vince was an icon, they did all the backgrounds for all the country records. Wow. And Herb, when I opened for Tom Wopat, back then, I flat picked the guitar, I play the 5-string banjo, the mandolin, the harmonica. I'm funny on stage, and I play the fiddle. He came backstage with his eyes wide open and goes, "Man, you were great." Wow. And coming from Herb Peterson, that meant a lot. We exchanged numbers. He produced 4 songs on me. Wow. He brought me to Nashville. I did not get a record deal then. I had several later that never worked out. But because of Herb, I'm sitting there, or we're at a club that's no longer there called the Tavern on the Row. And one of the the assistant to Tom Collins' music was there. Tom Collins, another big name. Yeah, and her name was Alicia Winfield, and she was enamored with Herb, and she goes, "Well, who are you?" Well, Herb started singing my praises, and she said, "Well, why don't you come visit me in my office tomorrow?" So I did. I brought a song, and she listened to the song, and she tapped on the intercom to Tom Collins and said, "There's a song you need to hear and a man you need to meet." Wow. The song was called "I Meant Every Word I Didn't Say." Mm-hmm. I wrote it with Jim Dunn. And so I walk in there, and he's talking to somebody who has his back to me. I walk in there, and the guy who had his back to Tom looks at me and goes, "Jeff Pearson, what are you doing here?" That person was Dick Whitehouse, president of Curb Records in L.A. Wow. So Tom's taking this in. He's going, "Okay, I don't know this guy. The president of Curb knows who he is. Why don't I know this guy? I was brand new in town." Uh-huh. So anyway, we talked. He put the song on hold for Ronnie Millsap, but they never ended up cutting it. It was on a soap opera, though. But anyway, Roger was writing for Tom, and so I was writing with Roger, and Roger really liked my ideas. And one time I asked him, I said, "Roger, some of these big writers in town, like you, have their own publishing company. Why don't you have your own publishing company?" And he says, "I will in October, and I'm signing you as my first writer." Wow. That's how it happened. Wow. And then after that, I eventually signed with Tom. And after that, I was with Niles Borup, who, in my opinion, is the #1 song man in Nashville. And who's ever second, it's a distant second. Niles is a genius.
Wow.
God bless him.
High praise.
Yeah. But here's the thing that I messed up on at first. No, not so much when I was writing with Roger, but when I started writing for Tom, I was trying to write songs that I thought Tom would like. And a writer cannot do that. You've got to write songs that mean something to you, but that will also translate to the listening audience. I get my best song idea. Well, like that first song I did about Dad and Mom.
Right.
That's a true song.
Yeah.
And most of my songs have an element of truth. There might be a little artistic license there, here and there. But by and large, I always tell people when I'm teaching a class, you'll get your best song ideas from things that you take for granted every day. Think of somebody, when I was a senior in high school, we had a foreign exchange student from Mexico named Carlos Jesus Ramos Burs, lived with us for a year.
Wow.
And I remember at dinner one night, he took his glass of milk, he drank half of it, and middle of dinner, he puts it in the fridge. And my mom goes, Carlos, why are you putting and he goes, I'm saving it for tomorrow. He thought we were millionaires. We've never been. I've never been. I'm basically a thousandaire, to be honest. Anyway, he saw what we took for granted every day. Wow. And as a songwriter, that's what I tell young people. Listen to what comes out of your mouth. Listen to what comes out of other people's mouths. And look at your own life, and you'll get the best ideas. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to be cute. Try to be real.
Jeff, I think that's the best advice I've heard on this show. So
well, I appreciate that.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. So going back to publishing,
yeah.
You're a songwriter in this town, and you're aspiring, and you want to take it to the next level. Do you recommend going after a publishing deal or staying independent? What advice would you give to writers today?
Well, I'm not sure if you're independent, you have an avenue to get your songs to producers and artists. Mm-hmm. And if you do, I say go for it. Mm-hmm. But here's what I would tell. When I was hosting the Bluebird, everybody would ask me, how do you get a publishing deal?
Yeah.
Here's what I would tell them. Do you have any friends that write for a publisher? Yeah. Write with that guy or the girl. Because if you write a good song, their publisher is going to hear it. And they're going to go, well, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Well, he's my friend I met at the Bluebird. Who's his publisher? He doesn't have one. The publisher will say, I want to talk to him. Because he'll want that new writer to either pay for half the demo or give the publisher the publishing. Yeah. And then I tell the new songwriter, I go, don't just give him your publishing. Have a conversation with him first. Tell him, look, I really love writing with Bob over here, and I'd really love to write with some of your other writers, and you can have my publishing if we can do a deal where you'll let me write with some of your writers, and I still want to keep writing with Bob, but because I think your writers are top of the mountain or whatever you want to say. But you show them that you have a professional mindset. That you don't want to say, well, listen, I'm going to keep my own publishing. I'll make more money if it gets. You don't do that. Yeah. If you've had 100 hits, then you can do that. Yeah,
I got you. More good advice. Thanks, Jeff. You came from California. You mentioned Orange County. You're just south of L.A., right?
Yeah, my hometown's called Santa Fe Springs.
Santa Fe Springs.
Yeah.
Now, was country music a hotbed there? I know I grew up in Cleveland. We were the rock capital of the world.
You're right.
But I worked for a country radio station. That's how I got into country music, which I started in 1980 doing country. How did you get into country music?
Well, in my household, we grew up on Hank Sr. And Buck Owens.
Well.
And I can remember coming home from school, and my dad would be in the garage working, and he'd be singing a Waylon song. Got the only daddy that'll walk the line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
My dad loved that song. And but the man and woman across the street, they were from Anadarko, Oklahoma, named Delbert, Clyde Martin, and Maxine. They would sit on the front porch. They lived right across the street. He'd play the guitar, always needed a shave, and Maxine, his wife, would play the mandolin.
Wow.
And so I actually wrote a song about that.
Yeah.
I'll play it for you here.
Okay.
But before I do, the Santa Fe Springs City Library was incredible. They had an incredible collection of folk music records, blues music, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee, and they had bluegrass music. And I was fascinated with bluegrass. And to playing with Delbert and Maxine across the street. I was just beginning, you know, but here goes. He picked a battle-scarred flat-top guitar with old black diamond strings. She played a pawn-shop mandolin sitting on the front porch swing. It was Southern California. I was just 13, learning how to play guitar with Delbert and Maxine. They came from Anadarko, Oklahoma, USA. In a weather-beaten Studebaker, they drove out to L.A. Never sparkled in no rhinestones or lit up the silver screen, but they shined in faded overalls, Delbert and Maxine. Two California Okies making music in L.A. They weren't seeking fame and fortune, they just loved to sing and play. They changed my life with just 3 chords and a little hillbilly harmony. Lord, it don't get any countrier than Delbert and Maxine. I learned by sitting in with them when country music's real. The only thing that matters is how it makes you feel. It'll either make you laugh or cry, ain't no in between. That was the gospel according to Delbert and Maxine. Two California Okies making music in L.A. They weren't seeking fame and fortune, they just loved to sing and play. They changed my life with just 3 chords and a little hillbilly harmony. Lord, it don't get any countrier than Delbert and Maxine. I miss that old front porch and the songs we used to sing. Moving back to Oklahoma was their California dream. Now they got a brand new set of old friends who just can't get their fill of Delbert singing the cross-eyed girl that lived upon the hill. I know just what those folks are thinking every time they hear 'em sing. Lord, it don't get any countrier than Delbert and Maxine. I wish you all could have heard 'em sing, Delbert and Maxine. Too real for the radio, Delbert and Maxine. He picked a battle-scarred flat-top guitar with old black diamond strings. She played a pawn-shop mandolin sitting on the front porch swing.
Jeff Pearson, that's awesome. I'll tell you what, man. I feel like I know him. I feel like I've seen him.
They were the greatest, man. I absolutely love them. They're both gone now, but I've sung that song out only once, and I need to do it more, I think.
Yeah, you do. I think you do. Got to take a little break. We're going to come back with more with Jeff Pearson. I want to talk about your one-on-one songwriting stuff you do, okay? Don't go away.
You're listening to the Songwriter Connection, connecting with music makers and hearing their songs and stories. Now back to the show with your host, Dave Linehan.
Our guest is Jeff Pearson. Before we continue on, I want to tell you, if you're listening on YouTube, I know we're out there everywhere, but if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to click that like and subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Songwriter Connection podcast. Jeff Pearson, fantastic songwriter.
Thank you.
Published songwriter, hosted at the Bluebird for 17 years. We're sharing stories and talking. But you also offer advice to other songwriters in this town. You do some one-on-one tutoring. Talk about that a little bit. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, I've got my brother's an incredible graphic artist, and he made this little flyer for me. It's called one-on-one songwriting sessions. Mm-hmm. And what it took me years to learn, I can teach somebody in about a 2-hour session or two or 3 sessions. Mm-hmm. And what I focus on is something I learned from one of my favorite writers in town, Fred Kohler. When I lived in California, I have a Bobby Bear album, and like 3 or 4 or 5 of the songs are written by Fred Kohler. And when I moved here, I met him. He's one of my favorite artists and writers. And I asked him once, I said, where does your eye for detail, where does it come, how'd you develop that? And I said, your songs have such a picturesque part of it, you know? And he said, notes. I take notes. And I thought to myself, what do you mean? Like, he goes, like brainstorming. Before I write the song, I get ready to write the song and I take notes. And I was young and I'm thinking, I'm not going to do that. That's too much work. I didn't for the longest time, but as soon as I did, my cut ratio went up.
Wow.
My songs got better. And I try to implement that to these young songwriters. I'll tell them, first of all, you have your title. And then you take notes. I never write the first verse first. I craft the song. I write the chorus first because the chorus is the the chorus is the destination of every verse.
That's a cool idea. I've done that a lot too. Yeah.
Well, if you write your first verse first and you finish the verse, you still haven't landed anywhere because your destination hasn't been written. But here's the other deal. I even go back further than that. I go, when you start your title, don't just start with your title. Fine-tune that title. The example I use is this. Let's say your title is called The Front Porch. There's 3 words, The Front Porch. The seems pretty insignificant, but it isn't. What if instead of the, and you're fine-tuning your title, what if it's This Front Porch? This is more specific than the. I'm standing on this front porch. I'm sitting on this front porch. What if it's that front porch?
Wow.
I'm not sitting on... She's sitting on that front porch.
Yeah.
What if it's my front porch? Now there's ownership with just one word change. This is my front porch. I'm sitting on my front porch. What if it's our front porch? Now there's a relationship with one word. What if it's our back porch? Now there's intimacy with just one change of the word. I try to get songwriters to look at their titles and say, make sure you're writing that title, the best possible title it can be. And your notes, anything goes. It's just another term for brainstorming. Every conceivable thing you can think about it. And then when you write your chorus, I write more than one chorus. And then I flip-flop the lines to see if the last 2 lines will be better as first 2 lines. And I write the chorus a lot of times as the payoff, like a punchline and a joke. And I want to set that. The punchline's not funny unless the setup is perfect. And so when I start writing, after I have my chorus written, I start writing the first verse. The first thing I do is write the last line of the first verse.
Because so it goes right into the...
That's the spring. Right in. That's the springboard to the chorus. And then I write the setup line for the last line.
Wow, that is so cool.
And...
You know, right away, that's the song that pops into my head. One of the greatest crafted songs in the last few years was I Drive Your Truck. Remember that song?
Yes, that's an incredible song.
Look at the lyrics to that song and listen to that song, and you will see how important that last line before the last line of the verse is before that chorus. And every time they nail that. It leads in perfectly every time. Anyway, I backtracked.
That's cool. And I just...
The other thing is a line before the hook, too. That title. That's a pretty important one.
Yeah, the setup line is important because it's got to be right. And you don't ever want to confuse your listeners because as soon as you confuse them, you've lost them because they're trying to figure out what you meant. Yeah. And then the next 2 or 3 lines, they're going to miss.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah. And the power of a word, like you said, the power of the word, our front porch. Yeah. This front porch. That's so cool.
I appreciate that.
So right. Yeah.
And I focus on a lot of different things. And this sometimes happens when you're writing. You're writing a song, and all of a sudden you go, man, I can't think of nothing else. That's when you go to lunch. And the other deal is, I'm a big believer in when you're writing with another person, you want to make sure that you have some ground rules. My biggest ground rule is this. If I have a line that I think is great and you don't like it, that line will not make it into the song. Yeah. We only put lines in the song that we both like because you can always circle that line that you thought was great and use it as a song title for another song or put it in another song. But there's no need to argue. It destroys the atmosphere and the vibe and everything. So ground rule number one. Yeah.
We got a show coming up where we're going to focus in on co-writing, the advantages of that. I like to write, with another writer. Sometimes I like three because you've got one that can always break the tie. I hold Precious on this line. You don't like it as much. What's the third guy think? And they may break the tie. So it's kind of cool. I want to do that in a future podcast, and we will.
That's cool.
So that's neat. What you do, that is really incredible. And I'm just looking down the list of things. You'll talk about things like metaphors, and that's important in a song.
Yeah.
Painting pictures with lyrics, which you're very good at doing.
Well, I appreciate that. One thing I tell people, when you're writing a song, don't worry about a broken heart. It's always going to be in the song. Don't think that writing a cliche is the end of the world. If the rest of the song is solid, the cliche is going to stand out too. But, you
hear it every day. You really do.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm having one of those...
Like my song Squirrel Train?
No, my mind's on a freight train right now. I was going to say something, and then I get sidetracked.
Yeah.
What did you just tell me a second ago?
We were talking about painting pictures with lyrics.
Yes, thank you. It's like, I'll tell people, don't tell me in the song that you looked into her eyes. Tell me that you looked into her wounded eyes. That paints a picture. She's got a broken heart. Her wounded. Yeah. What about...
Again, the power of a word. One word.
I looked into her immigrant eyes. I mean, paint, don't tell me that a car drove down your street. Tell me that a 58 Studebaker drove down your street.
Being specific.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be general. The more specific you are, the more people you're going to really reach. So it's one of those deals.
I love it. Good stuff. Now, you do more than just songwriting. I understand you're an avid fisherman. You love to fish.
Yes.
Favorite places around Tennessee?
Well, I fish Percy Priest a lot because I live so close to it.
Yeah, me too.
And when I first came to town, one of the artists I mentioned opening for, I don't think I might have forgot to, but his name's Bobby Bear.
Oh, Bobby Bear.
Bobby Bear.
From Ohio?
Yeah. Bobby, of course, had that song Detroit City and 500 Miles and all that stuff. He's an insane bass fisherman like I am, and we just clicked and connected. And so there was an outdoor journalist awards banquet for all the writers for all the sports. The fishing magazines were there. Bobby Bear was the host, and he called me to be the music guy. So I'm doing it, and I'm talking, and I say to these outdoor journalists, you guys have the best job in the world. You get to fish with the pros. You get a free bass boat every year. And I said, I'm renting a John boat at Marrowbone Lake, which is a small 65-acre lake close to Nashville. I go, please, somebody have mercy on a starving songwriter and take me fishing. Well, Don Worth, who is now the senior writer at BassMaster and was a very honored BassMaster songwriter, he said, hey, man, I'll take you fishing. Get this. Turns out I lived about 6 houses down from him.
Isn't that something?
Did not even know it. And so,
small world.
Yeah, we started fishing together, going to church together, and because I'm from California, there's a different style of bass fishing. It's called finesse fishing, which very few people in the South employ. When I moved to town, anytime they did an article in BassMaster about finesse fishing, they used me as the so-called expert. I'm really not an expert. I'm very knowledgeable, but I would never consider myself an expert. But Don put me in BassMaster magazine numerous times, Southern Outdoors, U.S. Bassing, Smallmouth magazine, and I was just, for me, I loved it. Now, most of my friends didn't know it because there's not many people that are as caught up in bass fishing as I am. But my dad was from Minnesota, so I grew up in a fishing family and all that stuff.
Songmaster and Bassmaster.
Yeah, well,
Jeff Pearson.
I appreciate that.
The Songwriter Connection. Now, you know where I'm leading, right? You've got this song that slays them in the songwriter rounds.
Thanks.
And maybe you can introduce it.
Well, I'll do this
Play
song.
it for us.
I'll just do the song, then I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Okay.
It goes like this. My wife ain't into football or the UFC, but put a fishing pole in her hand. She can drop, shot, flip a jig, cast a Carolina rig, just like Kevin Van Dam. She got a Bill Dance poster on the ceiling overhead. She's all about fishing, even when we're in bed. Ain't I the luckiest man alive? My best fishing buddy is my own sweet wife. My baby kisses like a largemouth bass. She gets a hold of me, she don't hold nothing back. She's like a Merc 250 with a full tank of gas. My baby kisses like a largemouth bass. She don't do any cardio or step class aerobics. All she likes to do is fish. But when her fishing day is through, something else she likes to do that starts with a good night kiss. Yeah, the only way I know to get to my woman's heart is $100 Bass Pro Shops gift card. Lord, she gets that look in her eyes, and I know it's gonna be another sleepless night. My baby kisses like a largemouth bass. Lord, she's a keeper, I ain't throwing her back. She might look as innocent as a Sunday school class. Yeah, my baby kisses like a largemouth bass. Her kind of kissing ain't for the mild-mannered or me. I'm pretty sure she's never heard of a church hug or peck on the cheek. 'Cause my baby kisses like a largemouth bass. Yanks all the covers off and we hit the sack. Ain't no way on earth I'm yanking them back. Yeah, my baby kisses like a largemouth bass. She's got a 9-pound tongue. My baby kisses like a largemouth bass.
Jeff Pearson, Songwriter Connection Podcast. There's so much that we can unpack about that song, but first you got to tell me, has your baby ever heard that song, and what did she say?
Well, my wife really doesn't fish that much. She throws a crankbait, and but she's not. I just had to use my wife in the song, but that's a little artistic license.
Yeah.
But the way that song came about, I used to be in a trio with Steve Dean.
I love Steve.
He's the greatest, man. Yeah. Steve and Randy Van Warmer. Mm-hmm. And we were called Three Wheel Drive.
Randy Van Warmer, too?
Yeah.
Wow, he had that big hit in the late 70s. What was it?
You need Just When I Needed You Most. You left me just when I needed you most.
Yeah, great song. Anyway.
He also wrote with Roger Murrah, I'm in a hurry to get things done. Yeah.
Alabama, yeah.
Yeah, but Randy was like the sweetest guy, the most peaceful man I've ever met in my entire life. Wow. And we were a trio, but we kind of played like in the round. And so Randy would do a song, Steve would do a song, I'd do a song. And I have another fishing song called Mister, You Just Kissed Your Bass Goodbye. And I wrote that song about 30 years ago.
Oh, man.
And so when it would come to me, I would tell the audience, I'd say, I write a lot of love songs about fishing. I go, to me, love songs and fishing songs are the same thing. And I go, this song is called My Baby Kisses Like a Largemouth Bass. But it was really for the other. That was just a joke I would tell. And like 28 years later, I finally wrote the song because I wasn't paying attention to what I tell people. What comes out of your mouth? Listen, keep your songwriting ears and eyes open all the time. And so one time I'm writing all these fishing songs, and I'm stupid not to write this one, so that's what I did.
What you take for granted could be a song. And I just want to plug real quick, Steve Dean is also in this little trio called Hits and Grins right now.
Right.
And they were on the podcast not too long ago. If you missed that episode, Hits and Grins, it's really good. He blames his whole career on the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. He's a Beatle fanatic. I mean,
yes,
you cannot deny the Beatles.
No.
I was more of a Bob Dylan and Tom Waits fanatic.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
but,
two great ones. Yeah.
I mean, you listen to the Beatles stuff, thinking they recorded most of that stuff live.
Yeah.
Gosh, they were incredible.
And they were just kids
at
the time.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I don't know if we'll ever see that again,
I don't think so.
Probably not, yeah. Let's talk about that song in particular. One of the things that I gained from listening to that is we talk about being in the key, and I'm not talking about the musical key, but when you're talking about a fishing song, you have so many references to fishing and things to do with fishing in the key of fishing.
Yeah.
And I imagine that comes from those notes that you take, huh?
Well, I'm a very knowledgeable bass fisherman, and it's kind of like I write these songs from a standpoint of that I try to implement to all people. Write about what you know.
Yeah.
And I tell you, there's like several people in town, 13-year-olds, 14, 15-year-old girls. I haven't seen any guys doing it yet. They write these songs about stuff they know nothing about. They're writing serious love songs that should be for adults. And I've told them a couple of times, I've said, you know what? I really think you've got major talent. I said, Taylor Swift is the epitome of what you're not doing. And that is, she wrote for her own age group when she first started out. Oh, yeah. And I said, how old are you? 13? Do you have a boyfriend? No. Is there any guy you like? Well, there's this one guy I kind of like. There's the song title.
There's a guy I kind of like?
Bob or whatever, I kind of like him. Or I think he likes me. Or whatever. Ooh, yeah. Write about what you know.
Yeah.
So far, none of them have done it. But fishing songs, I know a lot about fishing. I know a lot about music. I'm not very good at anything else. I can't fix anything broken. My brother can do everything that I cannot. He's a master craftsman. He's an incredible graphic artist. Not me.
But you're an incredible artist.
Well, I got my own. I have a few moments here and there and everything. But, I know a lot about fishing. I'm very untechnical. My brother can testify to that because I'm calling him, hey, Joe, how do you do this on the phone? So.
Jeff, for me, any project I do around the house involves at least 3-4 trips to Lowe's, which is just around the corner.
Yeah.
Thank God. Because, here's the first trip, you go and you get it. Second trip, because, there was something you should have got that goes with that you need.
There you go.
The third trip, because I broke something and I had to go back and get it. Fourth trip, because I got the wrong thing the third time. That's the kind of handyman I am.
Well, I've got a buddy in town named Justin Moore who takes handyman work to a higher level. And he's the guy I call. If I have anything that breaks or needs fixing, I call Justin Moore.
There's a song we should write, The Unhandyman.
There you go. That's me.
There's a big, remember, I'm your handyman, I'm your unhandyman.
There you go.
We'll get together and write that one.
You got it.
Awesome. Anything else you want to share before we take it off with a song?
You want to do another song, you said? Or?
I would like to do at least one more to take us out.
Okay, I'm trying to figure what I should do.
First, tell me, where can we find your music out there anywhere?
I'm so untechnical. I don't have a website.
Okay.
I should have probably got one 35 years ago. But you can find songs I've written like by Hank. You can look up songs I've written like Hank Jr. Maybe I'm the One Who's Crazy.
Yeah.
Ricky Van Shelton.
He was a great artist.
Love Without You. Oak Ridge Boys I have a Christmas song with called Beneath the Christmas Tree. It's about an orphan who lives under the Douglas fir tree in the middle of town square. Wow. I've got some great Christian songs by the incredible David Phelps, who was part of the Gaither vocal band.
I was going to say, you work with the Gaithers, didn't you?
Yeah. He recorded a song of mine that he heard me do at the Bluebird Cafe. Wow. He came up to me and he goes, hey, Jeff, or he didn't know my name then. He goes, hey, dude.
Hey, dude.
Has anybody recorded that song? The song's called The Wind and the Waves.
Wow.
And I said, well, it's never been it had been cut twice already. I said, it's never been a single. He goes, can you have your publisher send that? They did, and he put it out there. Wow. And I've had the honor of playing with David. He's hired me 3 times to play guitar for him at these gospel music events, and we've had 2 gigs at the Bluebird doing benefits, and I'm sitting next to David Phelps, and I'm telling the audience, you realize I have no ego at all sitting next to David Phelps, who can out-sing the whole world. I sing a song, I sound like a ruptured toad, and then David Phelps comes on, and man, it's a songwriter's night, you do your own songs. Well, he honored me by doing The Wind and the Waves.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a thrill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those deals.
I had somebody just ask me the other day at the 12 Keys. I had the opportunity, I played the Bluebird like 4 or 5 times, but the first time in a round with other writers, the whole set, and it was just the thrill of my life.
Yeah.
But the other night, I had a writer new to town who said, "How do I get into the Bluebird?" And I didn't know where to begin with any advice there. I know they used to do those, and they still do those auditions.
Oh yeah. Here's how they do the auditions now. There'll be a date on the bluebirdcafe.com that'll say apply online. They take the first 75 people.
Wow.
And the audition just consists of a verse and a chorus.
That's it.
Because a schooled veteran of the music business can sit there and hear one verse and one chorus and go, yep, this person knows what they're doing. Yeah. Or this person probably needs a little more work before we get them on the Bluebird stage. And that's for the Sunday night Songwriters Night.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you do so many of those and you can get your own round, right? I guess. That's what I've heard.
That's what you'll hear, but it's really not like that.
No.
When people ask me, how did you get a gig playing at the Bluebird? Well, of course, I'm part of the Bluebird family for working there so many years. Yeah. But what I tell people is this. Do you have any friends that are already doing rounds? Yeah. Well, what's his name? His name's Bob. Everybody's name is Bob.
Everybody's Bob.
I say, hey, Bob, next time you're doing a round at the Bluebird, I would love to be part of it. And if that doesn't work, you write a couple songs with Bob.
Yeah.
And then you get in the round with Bob. That's the only way I know.
Does that sound a little familiar, folks? You can back up and hear that when we talk about publishers. But, here's the point. This is the reason why we call this Songwriter Connection.
Yeah.
It is about connecting with other writers.
Yeah.
And working together with them. Networking is so important.
Yep.
And it's like we said many times on this show, it's not always who you know, but who knows you.
Yeah.
And I think really that's what it's all about. That whole fellowship, that whole community, which we have here in Nashville, we're so lucky to have.
Yeah. And I'll tell you one of the best things that ever happened to me. I'm brand new in town. Maybe I've been here a year, maybe two. And I saw Jimbo Henson at the Bluebird. And Jimbo passed away several months ago, and the whole town cried.
Yes.
Wow. But what a loving soul. Well, I saw him at the Bluebird, and about a week later, I'm at the Green Hills YMCA, and there was Jimbo. And I walk up to him and said, hey, Jimbo. I said, you don't know me, but I'm Jeff Pearson. I said, man, I saw you play at the Bluebird the other night. You were inspiring and intimidating at the same time, because I realized I got a long ways to go. He says, you must be a songwriter. I go, I am. He says, well, let's write one. And I said, and what I said to him, I said, you're confused. You're the hit veteran songwriter. I'm the newcomer. You're supposed to be thinking of an excuse you can give me when I get the courage up enough to say, hey, Jimbo, would you consider writing with me? And he said, I made a deal with God. He's from Mississippi. Yeah. I made a deal with God. If I had any success, I would write with anybody.
Wow.
And I said, you're the only one, because I had, I knew several big writers, and I'd get with them and I'd say, hey, I'm an idea man. I'm a professional. I'd love to get with you. And if my ideas don't knock you out, I'm used to the word no. They wouldn't even say anything. But so anyway, Jimbo and I wrote a couple songs, and he like I say, he's the only one I've ever met like that.
Yeah, he was a great guy. Really a great guy. There's a film about his life.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
You can find it on YouTube, The Good Jim. And that's what Jimbo meant, The Good Jim.
Yeah.
And what a special person he was.
Yep.
This town really mourned is still mourning his loss. So, hey, how about taking us out with a song? You want to do one more?
I'm going to do this song that has been recorded 7 times, most notably by David Phelps from the Gaither Vocal Band. It's called The Wind and the Waves. All you had to do was raise your hand and speak the words, peace be still. And all the anger, all the fury of that raging storm surrender to your will. Even the wind and the waves obey. Why can't I? Why can't I? Where is my faith? Is it lost at sea? Lord, help me be like the wind and the waves. When the storms of life take me by surprise and my faith gets swept overboard, I hate it when I give in to all my fears instead of trusting in you, Lord. Even the wind and the waves obey. Why can't I? Why can't I? Where is my faith? Is it lost at sea? Lord, help me be like the wind and the waves. Lord, save me from my unbelief. Save me, save me. Even the wind and the waves obey. Why can't I? Lord, why can't I? Where is my faith? Is it lost at sea? Lord, help me be like the wind and the waves. I want to be like the wind and the waves.
That's great. Jeff Pearson, our guest. That's Wind in the Waves. She talked about on the podcast a little bit back ago. So
thank you.
Thanks for doing that song.
I want to say hey to all my California friends. Life is good, y'all. I miss you.
He's living the dream. We'll catch you next week on the Songwriter Connection podcast. All goes as planned. We'll have Trey Ackerman back. We'll talk some country history and get into his songs. He's a great guy. You'll love it.
Thank you for listening to the Songwriter Connection podcast. Find us on social media at Songwriter Connection. Also, listen to Dave Lanahan's Nashville Connections radio show. It streams live every Friday morning on WOBL and WNOI. Look for us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next time on Songwriter Connection.